So I am going to go over a couple of meeting norms. We will be recording this training, so if you would like to turn your camera off, you're welcome to do so, and stay muted until the end of the presentation. At that time, we will have a Q&A, so you're welcome to unmute, or you can place your questions in the chat box and we can ask them for you. So tonight we have myself, Kimberly Goshi, and we also have Marty Mata, Marty, and Megan Walls. Shannon is not with us tonight, but we are the in-home parent training team for Frisco ISD. Before we get started with our training tonight, I wanted to draw your attention to our email addresses here. If you ever need anything, you're welcome to reach out to us. We also have some resources that we love for parents to take advantage of. We have a website that is listed here, and we also have a Facebook page where we share the events that we find in the community and the events that we're hosting as a district. On our website, you will see lots of videos of trainings that we've done in the past, lots of visuals that you can download and use with your family at home, information on our Parent Sanctuary and Lending Library that is housed at the ECS. We are still operating the Parent Sanctuary and Lending Library with lots of resources that you can check out on Fridays. The parent trainers are also available for you to call into ECS on Fridays and get advice or information for your family. And this presentation will be shared with you at the end of the night. So all of the links that you see within it are going to be shared with you at the end of the night. So without further ado, tonight our speaker is Adam Smith. He is with Special Strong, and he is going to be sharing with us some healthy habits, some tips and tricks to make sure that your family's moving and eating healthy. So Adam is a adaptive needs trainer with Special Strong and dad to 3, 2 of whom have special needs. And I'm going to pass it over to him so he can share a little bit about himself and start the training.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Hi, everybody. Yes, as Kimberly said, my name is Adam Smith, and I have been a fitness trainer for a little bit over 10 years now, but I've been working specifically with Special Strong as an adaptive needs trainer for about 1.5 years. And I've learned a tremendous amount. I can't tell you how much it has changed my life and how much I've seen my clients' lives change, including things that I've learned at work. I've been able to incorporate with my children who, again, as Kimberly mentioned, 2 of them have special needs. So I just want to share some of my experience and hopefully a little bit of hope, because I know it can be pretty daunting to be a parent to children who have special needs. And I'm looking at this presentation as much as a parent as I am a trainer, because that is, I'm looking to build a community as much as anything. So this is as much for me as it is for you, quite frankly. So essentially, you know, I'm here to give you some tips, but I also want to validate your frustrations and validate those days when you feel like, wow, nothing's going right, and perceptions of failure. That's just the reality of what it's like to have children who have special needs. But, you know, as I will be indicating, the important thing is that we don't look at any one day to define how well we're doing on this journey, because we all have terrible days and we have great days, but it's easy to overlook the great days when you have frustrating days. And everything is aggregate, it's long-term, and I've seen some amazing success stories. So I also want to reiterate my phone number and my email are up here. If you have any questions about anything I go over, or you feel like maybe there was something that wasn't addressed that you'd like to have addressed, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to share and help in any way that I possibly can. So before I get started with the kind of nuts and bolts, I just wanted to share some success stories with clients that I've worked with specifically and personally through Special Strong. When I first came on board, I had no experience working with the special needs community other than with my own children. But every individual is completely different. So in the same way that those of us who have children who have special needs have to solve a new puzzle every day, generally speaking, this was more puzzles for me to have to solve with people that I didn't even know. I didn't even know if they'd listen to me. But a handful of people that I've just seen change so dramatically. One is Chris, who has autism. He's 25 years old and still lives at home. It's not likely that he's going to be able to hold down a job or even really support himself or live on his own, but he is verbal, and he does have some physical ability. And when I started with him, he was such a lover of basketball, but he would play and sometimes try out for Special Olympics and really have a tough time because he's very shy and didn't like contact with other people and just was having a tough time playing the game. And so when he came to me, he really wanted to just get over that. But over the course of a year and a half, he's about to deadlift 300 pounds. He's about to run an 8-minute mile. I taught him to be a boxer. And, you know, if boxing was in the Special Olympics, I would put him in the ring. It's obviously not for a number of reasons, but he would definitely be able to do it. So the shyness and the fear of contact with other people has absolutely disappeared. And I've seen him come out of a shell that I thought was a part of his personality, but I think it was just a part of his fear that we were able to overcome. Another client, Spencer, and I kind of want to get into how I've seen with these particular clients how their soft skills have improved. And I think a lot of times when we, my child has autism, one has autism, the other has a number of diagnoses, but we don't see a lot of use of soft skills, i.e., empathy, confidence, leadership skills, things like that. They just kind of go with the flow, or they go with their own agenda, whatever that is at any given time. But I've really seen the soft skills develop even with some of my very low functioning clients. And it's just through perseverance and constant addressing their needs as an individual. And perhaps it's the coach client relationship. I'm not sure exactly what has led to that. But Spencer, who is in one of my group classes, when we first started, he was obviously very interested in exercise and eager to help me out. He wanted to help set things up and help me clean up. And I just kind of on a whim thought, you know what, I want to take advantage of this. And so I started asking him to design workouts for the group class, which he eagerly did. And I said, Spencer, why don't you lead a couple of the segments of the class? Why don't you try doing that? He's very shy, really spoke so low that nobody could hear him, but he was trying. Well, fast forward to a year and a half later, he's got this booming voice. He gathers everybody together. He helps me specifically with my more challenging clients because I may have 11 to 15 kids in a class and of varying abilities, some very high functioning, some really struggle. And I can hand him off to the people who are really having a tough time so I can focus on the bulk of the class. And he really has become a leader. And that was amazing to see because he barely made eye contact when I first met him, and certainly didn't speak above speaking voice volume. And then the third one I want to share is Jake, who's really kind of my I don't know, it's been nothing short of miraculous. He was my first client with Special Strong the very first day that I had a one-on-one meeting when I didn't even know if I was qualified to do this. Beyond being a fitness trainer, but working with this community, I had no idea. And it was very much sink or swim. When I met Jake, he really didn't make any eye contact with me at all. There was no indication that he was interpreting what I was saying as words that had any meaning at all. He wouldn't speak to me. He would say a lot of things, but it had nothing to do with anything we were talking about. And he would just bolt at a full sprint across a public gym. And I spent the first 3 weeks just trying to run interference between him and the other gym patrons so that he wouldn't hurt them or hurt himself. And I just thought, wow, was a terrible decision and a total disaster. And I'm a failure at this. But, you know, I kept showing up and he kept showing up. And I finally figured out, you know, he plays catch really well. So for weeks, we just played catch with a hacky sack because at least it kept him in one place. Well, through all that perseverance and trying to figure out what makes the guy tick, he's now a runner, and he's also close to an 8-minute mile now. I couldn't get him to stand on a treadmill, much less stand in one place. And it's making me a little misty, actually. It's been kind of amazing to see. I didn't think I was going to get emotional during this, but just has blown me away. We're having what I would call conversations, so to speak. He's still not terribly verbal, but we've learned how to communicate, and that's been an amazing experience for me. So the reason I'm sharing all of this is, again, it brings it back to one day or even a 1 week, one bad week or 1 month does not define the totality of this experience with things we're trying. It's just important to keep at it. I mean, we don't have much choice. Those of us who have parents with kids who have special needs, like, we got to keep at it because we're their stewards and we care about them, and it's our responsibility to do so. But it is possible to facilitate a change if we just have a plan, we stick with it, and we don't give up on ourselves, and recognize days when we have to give up on ourselves for that day. It's okay. We can't do this every day 100%. I certainly can't. I'm a trainer. I've been doing this forever. My wife is a mental health therapist who specializes in eating disorders, and we mess up all the time, probably most of the time. But those small victories lead to big results over time. So, and I think the parent coaches here will attest to that as well. So getting into my own personal experience with my son Parker, who he's 8 years old, on the autism spectrum, verbal, and really his biggest challenges are some of the challenges are cognitive, very much social challenges, but the quirks that we see with autism, the idiosyncrasies, the sudden meltdowns that come out of nowhere that can lead to 2 hours of trying to negotiate, beg, cajole, pick them up off the ground, doing whatever you can do with no rhyme or reason to why this is happening. That happens from time to time. Outright defiance, outright lack of understanding, all of the things that parents with children who have autism experience. But we have a great relationship, and he does have a lust for life. And so we have been able to have some success with things, even though he's very headstrong. And when he gets his mind set on something, it's pretty well set. So deviating from that is a challenge. But I do want to talk a little bit about the SMART goals approach, the acronym SMART, which I'm sure most of us have heard. If not, I mean, I'm going to go through it anyway. But what we found was after his diagnosis, and after we started realizing we were running into difficulty in just our day-to-day life with him, we thought, wow, we need to change some things. But we didn't know exactly what to change, how to change it. We didn't have any plan. It was very vague. And so we just kept making a mess of the day, getting frustrated, and Parker would get upset. And honestly, through my work with Special Strong, that was the best place for me to learn how to address my own son. So it really kind of fed me a lot of the tools that I needed. But I started using the SMART goal setting strategy. And basically that is specific, measurable, achievable, timely, and realistic, or realistic then timely, if I'm going to spell it correctly. But I'll just give you an example with Parker. One of the things we were trying to do was improve his eating habits. Well, improve his eating habits is too vague. That means nothing. You might as well have no idea about anything at all. But we decided, okay, let's be specific. We want him to eat a little less macaroni and cheese, because if we let him, he would just eat macaroni and cheese all day long until a ripe old age. And we were hoping to get more vegetables in him. So I tried little things like mixing the whole grain mac and cheese with the regular mac and cheese. Well, he has a very sophisticated palate and detected that right away. So that was out the window. So I swapped out the butter for olive oil. That was a no-go. That one went in the trash as well. And I really thought, wow, we're not going to get anywhere. But, I kept trying. And one evening I said, we're out of mac and cheese, buddy. So I made something else. And I took some broccoli, and I took the entire produce section of cheese and threw it into a pot, so that it was literally just cheese broccoli soup. I mean, that wasn't my intention, but I was like, I got to hide the broccoli as much as possible. But he absolutely loved it. So I got lucky, and it was just from simply continuing to try and not give up, because he can't just eat mac and cheese. So point being is, he hasn't asked for mac and this was only a few weeks ago. He hasn't asked for mac and cheese, but he has been asking for the broccoli and cheese. And the thing that I discovered, so going back to the SMART goals, that is measurable. Was it achievable? The thing that I discovered is the main flavors he wants are butter and cheese. So whatever else is in there, whether it's pasta or broccoli or anything, is just kind of the vehicle to get the butter and cheese into his mouth. So he really didn't care. That took some figuring out, but the fact that he has asked for it, well, clearly it was achievable. Was it realistic? There's no way he was going to go from mac and cheese to steamed broccoli. That's a non-starter. Forget about it. But I was able to turn it into broccoli cheese that seemed like mac and cheese, and he was totally fine with that. Was it timely? Yes. It took a couple of weeks, and I was hoping that it would take 3 months of trying. So we were very fortunate there, but that's just one of those areas where it is really important. If, we've learned that we need to address one thing at a time with Parker and with our teen who has some special needs as well. We cannot change everything at once because it's too jarring to them. It's jarring to us, and we all just end up exhausted and we get nowhere. So just pick one thing and baby step it and have a SMART plan. If you're, I should probably have included that in the slides, but you can look it up or follow up with me, and I'll just go through what the SMART plan is, because it really is crucial. It's a clearly defined plan. You can tell if it's failing as you're doing it, and then you can switch course rather than just beating your head against the wall with something that's not working. And also take notes as you're doing it. Jot little things down like, well, he really didn't like the whole grain mac and cheese. Cross that out. Okay, it looks like he might like something else. That way you can see your progress. Otherwise, it just feels like, well, I'm throwing away mac and cheese every night. What a waste of food. This is a total failure. I'm just going to make mac and cheese, which we have certainly been there too. None of us do this perfectly. I want to cover a couple of food strategies. So one thing that we were running into in our home that was pretty daunting is it was starting to feel like a restaurant, because Parker has certain tastes. Our oldest Milo has certain picky tastes. Our youngest was 4 at the time before we started figuring things out. So he's going to eat whatever he wants if he eats it all, because he can't stop talking. And then my wife and I have specific tastes, and we just do not have the time or energy to really turn it into a restaurant kitchen. It's impossible for us. So what we started doing was we would take really basic things. So let's say that in your family, you've got someone who's pre-diabetic. Maybe someone else is underweight. As our 8-year-old has always been underweight, he eats anything and he grows an inch. So we just haven't been able to keep that ratio. And then maybe someone else who just will eat whatever. So let's say with the pre-diabetic, you've got chicken, you've got broccoli, and you've got rice. Pretty basic foods. Most people can eat that, barring an allergy. But for instance, with our son Parker, because we always need him to get more calories, and we also want him to get those whole foods like chicken, broccoli, and rice. The rice gets lots of butter, the broccoli gets lots of cheese, and the chicken gets barbecue sauce. So he's getting the base foods that we've made for everybody, but he's also getting the additional calories just to sustain his growth, because it's very hard to keep weight on it. For me, I'm going to eat the chicken, broccoli, and rice too, but I can't eat it the way he does because I've got reflux and I've got high blood pressure. It's just genetic misfortune in my family. So, I'm going to put lemon on the broccoli. I may have just a little bit of salt and pepper on the chicken, and I'll have a very small amount of rice or none at all. Nothing has changed. It's just the distribution. We have made one meal for everyone, for 5 people, and we just distribute it differently. So you're not pulling your hair out. You've got a couple of sauces and options based on everybody's individual needs. And that way you can have leftovers and, have it for lunch the next day, which I'm home with my kids now because of COVID most of the time. So we're often eating lunch the next day with the leftovers we had the day before. So I still don't have to make anything new, but I can get creative with the meal we've already had. And so far, so good. Knock on wood, it has worked smashingly, and my wife and I are not losing our minds. Um, and then moving into exercise, which nutrition is what I do in terms of my family. I don't really prescribe diets for people for my clients, but I do offer tips. But exercise is really my forte. That's my expertise. And when working with clients, we have access to a lot of tools. Usually before COVID, we were in a gym. So we have a plethora of things to choose from to keep our clients engaged and try out different things. If this isn't working, then maybe we'll try this. But obviously, when it's your own kid, the dynamic is different. I'm the coach with a kid who's not mine. And so they look at me like a teacher. They respect me automatically because I'm the authority figure, and they don't know what my buttons are. So they may try to push them, but they're not going to be the same buttons that mom and dad have. When it's mom and dad, i.e., me, when I'm at home and I'm not the coach, I'm not Coach Adam anymore. I'm dad. I don't want to do this. The dynamic changes a little bit. So the number one rule for me with getting my kids to move is it's got to be more fun than the thing that they were already doing. Otherwise, forget it. With my clients, they're there to work out and they know what they're doing. That is the thing they're doing. But, my son Parker would stay on his iPad with Vulture Neck all day long and eat macaroni and cheese. And that would be the extent of his life. And he would be perfectly content with that. But we're not content with that. And so, again, setting SMART goals, we wanted him to move more, but we needed that specific goal. So we have a trampoline. And I thought, okay, if we can just get him to jump on the trampoline 30 minutes every couple of days, that's a pretty good amount of exercise. Trampoline is good exercise, and it's more than he was getting when COVID started, because we all kind of, let's face it, we all kind of collapsed, I think, for a couple of weeks when all the shutdowns started, because nobody knew what was going to happen. But it was time to get out from under the covers and get moving again, so we didn't develop inertia in the wrong direction. So the idea was getting him to jump on the trampoline for 30 minutes. And I found out pretty quickly that in order for him to do that, I was going to have to join him. So I'm jumping on the trampoline as well, which, I don't mind. It's extra exercise. My biggest concern that I was going to go through the trampoline with them on it, which hasn't happened yet. So fingers crossed that's not going to happen. But specific goal, measurable. All I had to do was look down at my watch while we're jumping, determine when he was deciding, I want to get off, asking for 3 more minutes, and then maybe 5 more minutes, and then maybe 7 minutes. And eventually it was 30 minutes. So I could measure it, and we achieved our goal. Was it achievable? Well, we have a trampoline. He knows how to jump on a trampoline. And 30 minutes isn't 5 hours. So all of those things were achievable. I could see them on the horizon. Was it realistic? Yes. I just wanted him to jump more. He didn't have to learn a gymnastics routine. Just jump up and down, buddy. That's all we need you to do. And was it timely? Well, we had nowhere to go. We started this at the beginning of the pandemic. And by summer, which I was hoping we would get there by summer, we were jumping for a half hour a day, and still do most days. He's got PE and he's back in school now, but it's just become a habit for us. They've turned it into games, let's knock dad over, which is not hard to do because I'm not great on the trampoline. But, so 2 things just to sum up: we don't want him to eat as much macaroni and cheese, not cancel macaroni and cheese. And we just need him to do a little bit of something with a tool that we already had. And we succeeded, again, because I'm such a big believer in SMART goals, having a plan and taking notes so that you can recognize whether or not you're heading in the right direction. You get that empirical feedback that allows you to then make changes if needed. And, these are, for us, these are really small things. I mean, they're, as I mentioned before, they're small victories, they're small changes. We have lots of challenges on the road ahead in this journey, but it's huge for us because once a change happens, especially with a child who has autism, that's now their new mode. Because they develop modes and that is their mode and they are going to do that. And if you deviate from that, well, you're going to have some problems. So to be able to shift just one of those to where that now that's the new mode is nothing short of miraculous. And it makes everyone's life easier and ultimately makes him a healthier person, hopefully continuing on into adulthood. So I just want to get into some of the nuts and bolts for things that as parents you can specifically do that outside of it's cold right now, so we're not doing as much trampoline jumping, and so I've got to get creative because I still want them exercising. So the most important tools that I have used with my two youngest are cones, which I've indicated a link on one of our sheets on one of our slides that you'll see later, but you can buy them on Amazon. They're super cheap. You can get them at Target. I mean, anywhere. Just these little tiny half cones that you can use to set up as markers. Both of my kids are fully functional in terms of their physicality, and I know that's not going to be the case probably for everyone here, which I will get into. But in their case, what I will do is I'll set up cones, just space them out throughout the house, and then I'll just say, okay, we're going to do a timer and we're going to have races. And the timer, for whatever reason, both with my children and with all of my clients, has become huge. They love to know that what their time is and if they're getting better, no matter what they're doing. Sometimes I will just time them going to the water fountain. If we're in the gym, like, okay, you went this time last time, now you got to get back this quick. And they love it. And they take off running to the water fountain. So huge help to me. Cones and a timer, if I had no other tools, that would cover the bases, frankly. But I'll intersperse cones and I'll say, okay, from cone 1 to cone 2, you're going to hop on 1 foot. And then on cone 2, cone 3, you're going to bear crawl. And then you're going to hop on 2 feet and whatever. I'm just throwing things at them randomly just to get them moving, trying to beat a time. They both do it. They compete with one another. By the end of it, they've had a good time. I get involved and I do everything wrong because that makes them laugh. And so I just, I'm kind of there was a Sesame Street character that couldn't get anything right. So that's the character that I play in our little obstacle course, and they have fun and it keeps them motivated. So we've gone for 20 or 30 minutes and they are huffing and puffing, but they weren't really paying attention to the fact that they were exercising. Now, again, my contact info is available. I have a library of exercises in my head because this is what I do for a living. So it may not be easy just to pull things out of a hat, but I am happy to help you with any kind of home workouts that you need, direct you to resources where you can find those until you kind of get the training wheels off and it just becomes comfortable for you. So that's what's worked for my kids at home. With people who have significant physical challenges. So I have had clients, I've worked with a client who had cerebral palsy, as well as with a client who has spina bifida. So some obvious significant physical challenges there. So with that kind of per individual, we really want to focus on life skill movement. Now we can still make it fun or make it enjoyable, but the most important challenge that they're going to have to overcome is just being able to get through life. It's not about socializing as much as it is getting up and down from a chair sometimes. Sometimes people can't get out of a chair at all. That doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities to exploit the gifts that they do have, because everybody's got something. So, with my client who had cerebral palsy, we would spend a lot of time just sitting down and standing up. And then I would have her try to sit down, stand up, and reach me and high five me, which was very hard for her. But it was kind of a little victory dance we would do. She'd sit up, she'd start to fall forward. Sometimes I'd have to catch her. I have to be hands-on with people sometimes, so always be prepared for that. But I'd catch her, we'd build that trust, we'd high five, and we'd get back to it again. So she's kind of more focused on me than she is her. And I found that to be really workable. Is like, hey, up here, this is where I am. I'm the safety net. It was encouraging, it was motivating. They felt like they had somebody who, she felt like she had somebody who's really invested in her progress with every opportunity that she had to sit down and stand up from a chair. So that was big for her. The client I worked with spina bifida, no use of anything from really the rib cage down, but very strong arms. So I taught him to box. But you don't have to be a boxing coach. You can just, play patty cake, high fives, do all kinds of creative stuff. Because if they can cross the midline, if someone is say paralyzed from the waist down, if you could teach them to cross the midline, well, that's going to lead to brain development and overall just physical development that they can use throughout their life. I mean, those of us who are neurotypical tend to stop crossing our midlines, and there's evidence that can be a contributor to dementia, believe it or not, because our brain hemispheres stop communicating across the boundary. So those are just some areas whenever, and again, if any of you have any specific physical issues that you're having trouble with and you have no idea what to do, just email me or text me and I'll walk you through some stuff. Let's say that you've got you're in the care of somebody who maybe has some physicality limitations or not, but severe cognitive limitations. So you may not be able to take them through a workout. You may have a tough time getting them to be disciplined to really follow any kind of routine at all. Totally okay. I have had clients like that. One in particular, I just played find the comfort toy. I asked mom, I said, can you bring something that's really important to Clint next time you come? And she said, yeah, brought it. And we just played hide and seek with it. Like, okay, you close your eyes, because that is important to him. I didn't know if we were communicating in any other way, but most people with special needs have a thing that is very important to them. So we just play simply hide and seek. And he was moving. And that was all we got out of it, but he was moving. Otherwise, he would be either standing there staring or doing something potentially destructive, which is also movement, but we don't want that. So we were getting him focused on something that he could turn into a game in his own way. And if that's the best you get, then that is huge, because it is a game. There is a goal. They're learning a skill. I don't know where that was. Now I do know where it is. Now it's in a different place. I mean, that's skill development right there. That's going to lead to brain development. I don't care what level of cognitive ability you have. If you can learn to find things, you're developing brain skill. So, again, look at those small things as big victories, because anytime you see a small change happen that is permanent, that is a life change. And I've seen it with my clients, and I've seen it with my own children. And frankly, I've experienced it myself, because this is doing this for work. My entire day now is basically steeped in the special needs community, because I do it for a job and I have children who have special needs. But I love it, and it's made me appreciate, I think, who I am as a human being, as much as I am focused on my kids and my clients. So with that, without further ado, that pretty much covers it. In terms of the basic generalities, I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, which you're welcome to ask if that's reasonable in this spot. We also have some slides here with some things that I put together if you want ideas on tools that you can use. I've used all of these things to great success. Obviously, at the top, I put treadmills just because I've used them with all my clients and it's been very successful. That's not always something that is affordable or reasonable to have in the home. We have one. We found some fairly affordable ones on Amazon, and it certainly, for For our community, you don't need one that's going to train them for an Ironman. You just need something that they can hold on to and walk or move. But if you have a gym membership, whenever that's more easily accessible, that's a go-to for me for sure. Um, Agility ladders, all the links are here. That's great for people who have balance issues. A lot of people in our community do have balance and coordination issues, and that's something that I've seen. In fact, I have a girl in my group class on Saturday mornings who I'm not sure what her diagnosis is. Her mom was she wasn't really forthcoming about it, and I didn't interrogate her about it, but she really falls a lot. And just using that ladder, I've noticed that she walks more confidently, and it seems to have increased her hip strength. And so I don't have to feel like I have to catch her constantly. So huge tool. Exercise slam ball doesn't have to be heavy. I mean, you want to challenge your kids a little bit, but it teaches them, one, power and strength, but two, just vertical movement. Because again, we want to be working all of our planes of movement, the sagittal plane, or what's just the front and back plane, which all of us do. We stand, we sit, we walk forward. But the lateral plane, we're moving side to side. That develops the brain and body, which we can do with the agility ladder. The slam ball, again, sagittal plane, but we're dealing with level change, with height changes. I know I'm moving my hand too much in front of the camera. That's probably very distracting. I apologize. Speed training hurdles, that's one so that, I notice with a lot of my clients who come into my group classes, a lot of them have trouble with level changes in terms of their steps. So their parents will indicate that they have trouble just tripping over sidewalks or with curbs. It can be a daunting, scary task. So hurdles will help them start to navigate altitude changes. Even if it's a 3-inch altitude change, that's pretty big for some people. All of this stuff, by the way, other than the treadmill, is really pretty darn cheap. If you go to Starbucks every day, you can definitely afford this stuff. And then the blocking pad, I teach kickboxing in my own personal training business, but also with my special needs clients. But you don't have to be a kickboxing coach to just show somebody how to, use their elbows, throw their elbows, or kick a pad like they're kicking a soccer ball. One, I've noticed that it gets a bunch of stress out really quickly, especially if you are a caregiver to someone who has aggressive tendencies. I have worked with those kinds of clients, and they've been able to channel a lot of that into the kick pads so that they get that stuff out. And then when they go back and see mom and dad, they're not taking it out on mom and dad because they're exhausted and they've got their punches and kicks out. So a great tool to help refocus. And I often, even if I'm not doing kickboxing specifically with a client who is aggressive or maybe a little bit wanting to be hands-on or pinch me, things like that, things happen. That's when I get the pad out and I'm like, if you want to kick, you kick the pad, and we're going to kick until you are exhausted and go, and they go. And 9 times out of 10, it completely shifts whatever that mindset was that had them targeting me as their source of aggression. So highly recommend that. Not overly expensive. And then, yes, some links. So thank you for putting this together, by the way, Kimberly and Megan. This is very helpful for me. I'm not a PowerPoint slide kind of person, so huge help. So if you need some just ideas on exercises, where am I supposed to start? What am I supposed to do? EXRX, which is at the top here, I've used for years and years and years. It's a library with everything. Be a little overwhelming at first, but if you just go to exercise library, you can just type in like legs, or they have a search box, or squats, or push-ups, or overhead. I mean, anything that you're trying to work on, it will guide you to an exercise to solve that riddle. Gives very specific instruction, safety protocols, things to watch for. So extremely thorough and has, gotten me out of a lot of jams. When I have people who can't do certain things a certain way, I've got to figure out how to do it differently, and I don't want to guess. So it's been able to teach me a lot. Fooducate, I love this app because, for instance, the macaroni and cheese box, you can scan the barcode with the Fooducate app, and then it'll tell you, well, we grade this a C, but here are some A and B options that you might be able to substitute for this. Well, that's enormous, because if you can try one step up and they like it, great, you've won the day. And it has a massive database of items to choose from. The free dieting calorie calculator, I'm not a huge diet kind of person. I'm not a diet culture kind of trainer. That's just me. I'm very much a health at every size kind of trainer, because none of us were born in a bikini, and I certainly have had my own struggles with calorie intake and weight. Obesity runs in my family. It's just that's not how I operate. However, when there is a medical issue that perhaps needs to be addressed, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, something that really requires focus on calorie calculations, like putting weight on my son who is underweight, this is a very useful tool. But I try to encourage people to, if they're wanting their kids to lose weight, so to speak, know why, because it's not always fair for us to impose our beliefs on the body that someone should be in. That's not always the most ideal approach, because I've noticed that kids with special needs, often they live in bigger bodies, and that's okay, because if they can perform, who cares? It does not make any difference. And so I'm a very much a body positive kind of trainer. And I just wanted to qualify that, because it says free dieting calorie calculator. That's very triggering in our household, especially with my wife, who works with individuals who have eating disorders. So we're very sensitive to that. But it is a useful tool if there is a medical need, or you're just curious about calorie intakes. Move Skill is a great, especially the one this particular PDF that I attached. It just has a list of, hey, we're taking somebody who's never really done any exercise. They can do some things. It just gives you some milestones to shoot for, like, hey, maybe they can get to 10 squats. So when you're looking at EXRX for how to do an exercise, you can see on this Move Skill PDF, like, 10 squats, 1 push-up, just arbitrary milestones. And then you can say, okay, well, how do you do a push-up? What's a push-up supposed to look like? Then you can go to EXRX, see exactly how it's performed properly with regressions if needed. And you can put that on the menu and start working through those, and work through them with yourself. I mean, it's when you have to demonstrate exercise, the side benefit is you end up getting exercise yourself. So there's nothing wrong with that. Moving down into Smiling Mind. So not everybody meditates. I discovered it a couple of years ago randomly through a friend that had been doing it. And if it's something you'd like to try, it changed my life without a doubt. And I do it with my kids at night. They're little like sleep meditations, because it's not easy to calm my 2 kids down. One is 5 and he's full of energy. The other one has autism, and he very much gets worked up at night because we're transitioning to something. So they have kids programs. It's free, which is always a bonus. But it just kind of helps talk them down into sleeping, and they've started asking for it. Like, hey, let's do the guy's voice. They call it the guy's voice. And it has really been helpful. I also have a meditation practice that I do daily, because it helps my own, I'm a pretty even-keeled guy, but I have 2 kids with special needs, a very busy life. We're all dealing with COVID, and sometimes I feel like my head's going to explode. So meditation has really helped me a lot with that. So I highly encourage it, especially since it's free. And then snack ideas and healthy substitutes. These are things that we use in our own life. Um, we're not a dessert is forbidden kind of household, but they can't just eat dessert all the time because that's obviously going to cause problems. So we try to substitute where we can, or at least offer options. And sometimes they want the better options. You know, it just depends. We, again, kind of going back to body positivity and not wanting to be a part of diet culture. Um, we like to just provide a lot of options and encourage everybody to try everything so that they recognize how many things are good that they never would have thought. Obviously, if the Hershey bar is put on the pedestal of the Shangri-La of delicious things, that if they do everything right and they get a Hershey bar, well, now they've won. You know, now we've got this one thing that they're locked in their mind with, as opposed to we don't really emphasize or glorify anything in the house. It's just, this is dinner, there's dessert available, you know, if you ate dinner and you can have it or not, and here are some other things. So a few specifics, I won't get into all of them, they're fairly self-explanatory, but I know with autism, with Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, a lot of those in particular can really, for whatever reason, the dopamine receptors really crave processed carbs and sugar, more so with those three issues, more than I've seen in others, but more than is the norm without a doubt. And so obviously that can become a problem because you can start to end up with sugar issues and any hosts of things if your sugars are too high. So I did include some things that help at least reduce the sugar. You know, you're not likely to eliminate sugar unless there's type 1 diabetes and you have to really watch it. But just reducing it, if you can get the sweet tooth flavor without just inundating your body with sugar, then it's a win-win. I can't really eat sugar and processed carbs because I have reflux, and that's just my own issue. And I've found that keeping that down keeps my reflux at bay because medication stopped working. So I use an erythritol monk fruit sweetener blend, which you can see at the top. It tastes a lot like sugar. It doesn't taste like a chemical like aspartame does. It also has, there's no known evidence that it does any damage to the body, unlike aspartame and saccharin and things like that can. And it's very satisfying. I mean, if I make lemonade and I use that stuff, my sweet tooth is cured and I have had no sugar. So that's definitely worth trying. Erythritol in high dosages can cause gastrointestinal distress, just because it's a sugar alcohol, but you know, it's nothing that's like damaging. It's just, it can make you uncomfortable. So you don't want to go crazy with it. If I wouldn't exclusively replace sugar with that, if you're trying to wean a child from sugar, go easy with it, maybe 50-50, or, you know, 80 sugar, 20 this blend. That's an option. Reddi-wip is definitely a go-to, because it's virtually all air. You know, a serving of 2 tablespoons is 15 calories. It tastes like dessert. And, you know, my go-to dessert is just berries and Reddi-wip, because again, it's not a lot of sugar. I love berries. I'm getting my sweet tooth fix. And because it's got Reddi-wip all over it, it seems like I'm having a banana split. I mean, the brain can be tricked. You know, I can trick my own brain, so I can definitely trick my son's brain, you know, who has autism. I mean, it's, I don't mean that to sound demeaning, but, you know, he takes what I give him, and if it looks like dessert, he's going to eat it. And that's great. So I just need it to look like dessert, and it's a victory. Um, the protein shake recipe at the bottom, this, it's very easy to make. It's not complicated. Really, anybody can have it. And if there's like an ice cream sort of habit, or, you know, just a sweet tooth habit in general, try different ingredients and you can very easily swap out. Both of my kids, well, one of my kids does not, but the other kid, anytime I make a smoothie for myself, he wants one too, and he loves it. So you never know who in the family is going to like it, but it's full of protein, full of vitamins and minerals, fairly low in calories, all things considered, and it's extremely filling. So it makes a meal in and of itself. And it's also, if you do get your kids moving and working out again, it's a great recovery meal right after a workout to help start rebuilding those nutrients and the calories and the stored glycogen in the muscles, the protein, all of that stuff that the body needs to recover from exercise. So just a few things that, you know, that I use that I know have been successful. Not everything's going to work for you. Not everything on this list works for us, but something that's going to work for one individual is going to fail for another, and vice versa. And it's so important to not give up and just keep trying. You know, you don't want to try everything all in one day, because again, that's going to frustrate you and your child. What about this? What about this? What about this? You know, then a meltdown is going to get triggered. At least that's what happens in our house. Sometimes it's my meltdown. But bottom line is, you know, just baby steps. Try a thing a week. Try a new thing a week. Because over the course of a year, you've tried 52 new things. If 5 of them stuck, that's 5 life changes. You know, now turn that into 10 years. Now you got 50 life changes. And again, if we can change a small trajectory and make it permanent, then you are making a tremendous amount of progress, permanent, lifelong progress that can be carried through adulthood. So that pretty much covers what I came here to talk about. Thanks very much for the time and opportunity. And I'm certainly open for questions, clarifications, anything that anybody has to talk about.
That was amazing. Megan, do you want to stop the recording and we'll do some question and answer?